The snow fell silently over the mountain cabin, blanketing memories and secrets alike. Inside, Everett Blackwood's weathered hands trembled as they traced the edges of the floorboard, the one his late wife Clara had warned him never to disturb. Beside him, 8-year-old Lily watched with solemn eyes that had aged beyond their years since her mother's passing 3 weeks ago. The discovery came by accident, a dropped toy, a hollow sound, and now this, a tunnel stretching into darkness beneath their home. What had Clara been hiding all these years in the mountains? What truth lay waiting in that earthen passage that she'd taken to her grave? Everett's fingers brushed against the worn leather cover of Clara's journal, hesitating before opening it. The cabin creaked around him, protesting against the winter wind. Lily had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from their discovery. "What were you hiding from us, Clara?" he whispered. 7 years earlier, Everett had arrived in these mountains as a different man, a wildlife biologist tracking wolf migration patterns. He'd built his research station far from civilization, preferring the company of creatures who made no demands. The solitude suited a heart already turned inward by academic disappointments and a failed marriage. He'd first seen Clara at dawn, photographing mountain flora with careful precision. She'd glanced up, startled by his approach, something wary in her eyes that never fully disappeared even after years of marriage. "You're trespassing on government land," she'd said, though there was no conviction in her voice. "Funny, my permits say I belong here." He'd shown her his credentials. "Wolves don't respect property lines, neither do certain plants." A hint of a smile had formed. "Perhaps we're both where we need to be." Everett turned the journal's pages now, scanning entries about weather patterns, growing seasons, and cryptic references to the sanctuary. Clara had been meticulous in recording the mountain's rhythms, but deliberately vague about her purpose here. He paused at a pressed flower, alpine forget-me-not between pages dated 3 years ago. The week Lily had fallen desperately ill with a fever no doctor could diagnose. Clara had disappeared into the forest for 2 days, returning with dark circles under her eyes, but a determined set to her jaw. Within hours of administering a tea she'd brewed, Lily's fever broke. When questioned, Clara merely said, "The mountains provide if you know where to look." She'd been especially protective of the area beneath the cabin afterward. Outside, an owl called into the darkness. Everett closed the journal and moved to check on Lily. She slept with her mother's features softened in her face. The same determined chin, the same slight furrow between her brows even in sleep. At 8, she already carried her mother's intuition about the natural world, identifying plants. Clara had taught her, sensing weather changes before they arrived. She knew more than she told us, Lily had said that afternoon, small fingers tracing the edge of the tunnel entrance. "Mom always said some knowledge was a burden, until you were ready for it." Everett had nodded, remembering Clara's favorite saying, "The mountains keep secrets better than people do." Now, looking at their sleeping daughter, Everett wondered if Clara had intended for them to find the tunnel. The floorboard hadn't been nailed down, merely weighted. A deliberate oversight from a woman who left nothing to chance. He returned to the main room and knelt beside the open floor. Cold air rose from the darkness below. Clara's scent, pine and something medicinal, seemed to waft upward, though he knew it was merely memory playing tricks. The beam of his flashlight revealed the first few feet of a carefully constructed passageway, shored up with timber and descending at a gentle angle. This was no natural formation or hasty excavation. This represented years of work, all beneath their feet, all without his knowledge. What secrets had she carried while preparing their meals, while teaching Lily about constellations, while lying beside him at night? How had she managed to create this elaborate structure without detection? A sharp memory surfaced, Clara's frequent botanical surveys, sometimes lasting days. Her insistence on having that time alone, explaining that some specimens were sensitive to disruption. Had she been down there all along, expanding this hidden world? Everett's hand found the half-written letter in his pocket, the one he'd discovered among Clara's things after the funeral. Addressed simply to E, and never finished. "When you find it," she'd written, "remember that knowledge without wisdom is dangerous." Trust Lily's instincts. She's more attuned than you realize. Whatever happens, know that everything I've done." The letter ended there, the pen trailing off as if she'd been interrupted. Or perhaps her strength had failed as the mysterious illness took hold. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow they would enter the tunnel properly equipped. Whatever Clara had been protecting, whatever she'd died keeping secret, it was their inheritance now. The morning Clara first showed symptoms remained vivid in Everett's mind. She had returned from a 3-day expedition, her pack unusually light, her demeanor distracted. When she'd dropped her mug at breakfast, the ceramic shattering across the floor, she'd stared at her trembling hands with something beyond surprise, recognition. "It's nothing," she'd insisted, "just tired." Within a week, her skin had taken on a faint yellowish tinge, her eyes, normally clear as mountain streams, grew clouded. She refused to see the doctor in the village until Lily found her collapsed in the garden, clutching a bundle of strange-looking roots. Dr. Harriet Jenkins had been baffled. "These symptoms don't align with any poisoning or infection I recognize," she'd said, shaking her grey head after examining Clara. "Has she been exposed to any unusual substances, chemicals, new plant species?" Everett had watched Clara's face carefully. Something had flickered there, knowledge, perhaps fear, but she'd weakly shaken her head. "Just the usual mountain flora," she'd whispered. That night, fevered and drifting in and out of consciousness, Clara had gripped Everett's wrist with surprising strength. "They'll come," she'd murmured. "Protect what's below. Promise me." "Who will come? What's below?" he'd asked, but she'd already slipped back into restless sleep. The next morning brought the first visitor, a man in an expensive suit, claiming to be from a pharmaceutical research company. "We heard Doc Blackwood is unwell," he'd said smoothly at the door, using Clara's maiden name. "Our company would be happy to provide specialized treatment, given her previous contributions to our research. My wife hasn't worked in any lab for years," Everett had replied, blocking the entrance. The man's smile hadn't reached his eyes. Perhaps she didn't mention her occasional consultations. "May I see her?" Everett had sent him away, but 2 days later, a government vehicle had arrived. The woman who emerged had shown credentials from the Department of Agriculture's Special Research Division. "I need to speak with Clara about her work," she'd stated flatly. "What work?" Lily had asked from behind Everett. The woman had stared at the child with an odd expression. "Your mother never mentioned her project." "My wife is too ill for visitors," Everett had interrupted. "Whatever project you're referring to will have to wait." After they'd left, Clara had beckoned Everett close. Her breathing labored. "My field notes," she'd whispered. "Burn them if I don't. If I can't, you'll recover," he'd insisted. "The doctor's coming back tomorrow with specialists." Clara had laughed, a sound like dry leaves scraping stone. "No specialist can help. I miscalculated the exposure levels." The next morning, more vehicles had appeared in the village. Everett had spotted men in dark clothing watching their cabin from the tree line. When Dr. Jenkins arrived with a colleague, she'd pulled Everett aside. "People have been asking questions about Clara's condition," she'd said, voice low. "Official types. What exactly did your wife do if moving here?" "Botanical research," he'd answered. "Government projects, mostly classified." She never discussed the details. The doctor had nodded slowly. "Her symptoms resemble certain radiation poisonings, but localized, almost as if, well, it doesn't matter now. We'll do what we can for her comfort." That night, as Clara's breathing grew more labored, Everett had found the half-written letter tucked beneath her pillow. He'd read it by flashlight while she slept fitfully beside him, questions multiplying with each cryptic line. When morning came, Clara had rallied briefly, lucid enough to hold Lily close. "The flowers that saved you," she'd whispered to their daughter. "Remember them. Your father will need that knowledge." Then, eyes finding Everett's, "Under the north floor. Follow it all the way. The truth is there." She'd slipped away as the first snow of the season began to fall. 3 weeks of grieving had passed before Lily's ball had rolled across the cabin floor, hitting the north corner with a peculiarly hollow sound. Even now, Everett couldn't decide if it had been chance or if Clara had somehow guided their daughter's hand from beyond. As he stared at the tunnel entrance, the strange visitors of those final days took on new significance. They hadn't come just to help Clara. They'd come for something else, something hidden beneath the floorboards, something worth monitoring the cabin even after her death, something that had perhaps cost Clara her life. Morning light filtered through frost-covered windows as Everett methodically packed a small rucksack. Water bottles, protein bars, a first aid kit, extra batteries. The preparations felt familiar, like preparing for field work, yet entirely foreign in purpose. Lily watched from her perch on a wooden stool, clutching her prized possession, a yellow flashlight Clara had given her on her 7th birthday. For exploring, Clara had said with a meaningful glance at Everett. Had she known even then that this day would come? "I'm bringing Mom's flashlight," Lily announced, her small chin set with determination. Everett paused. "We have stronger lights, sweetheart. Mom said it's special. It sees things other lights miss." She clicked it on, demonstrating the clear beam. "See? It works perfect." Everett didn't argue. Clara had indeed been particular about that flashlight, insisting on certain batteries, careful maintenance. Another piece of the puzzle. "Should we tell someone where we're going?" Lily asks, suddenly uncertain. Everett considered the question. Clara's warnings echoed. "They'll come. The mysterious visitors. The watchers in the woods." "No," he decided. "This stays between us for now, like one of our nature surveys." He pulled out his old field notebook, jotting down observations as he always had when studying wildlife. Tunnel entrance, approximately 3 feet in diameter, constructed with engineered supports, not a natural formation. "What if we get lost?" Lily's voice was small. Everett showed her the compass, the topo map of the mountain, the chalk for marking their path. The familiar tools of scientific exploration offered some comfort in the face of the unknown. "Your mother knew these mountains better than anyone," he assured her. "If she built this tunnel, she would have made it safe. Unless whatever's down there is what killed her," a voice whispered in his mind. The entrance gate before them, a rectangle of darkness in the cabin floor. Everett tested each rung of the ladder that descended into the passage, finding it sturdy, well-maintained. Not the work of an amateur. "I'll go first," he said, lowering himself down. "Wait until I call you." The tunnel was surprisingly tall, allowing him to stand almost upright. The air was cool but not damp, with a faint breeze suggesting ventilation. This was no hastily dug hideaway, but a carefully engineered structure. "It's okay, Lily. Come down." She descended with the practiced ease of a child who had spent her life climbing trees and scrambling over rocks. Her flashlight beam danced along the walls, catching something Everett had missed. "Dad, look." Her light illuminated the wall where small metal brackets had been installed at regular intervals. In each one, an unlit lantern waited. "She made a path for us," Lily whispered. Everett lit the first lantern, surprised to find it still had oil. A soft, steady glow spread through the tunnel, revealing smooth earthen walls reinforced with timber supports. Every 20 feet, another lantern waited. They proceeded slowly, Everett noting the gentle downward slope, the careful engineering that prevented water seepage, the occasional wider section with small alcoves carved into the walls. "Your mother must have worked on this for years," he murmured, half to himself. "She used to go on long walks," Lily replied. "Sometimes I'd wake up and she'd be gone." She said she was collecting morning dew for her specimens. The passage curved gradually, following what Everett recognized as the natural contour of the mountainside. Clara had worked with the landscape, not against it, a principle she'd always followed in her research. After 20 minutes of walking, the tunnel widened into a small antechamber. 3 different passages branched outward, each with its own row of waiting lanterns. On the central wall hung a framed map, meticulously drawn in Clara's precise hand. It showed the tunnel system spreading like roots through the mountain, with small symbols marking various chambers and exits. She made an entire world under the mountain. Lily breathed, awe replacing fear in her voice. Everett studied the map, recognizing the topography. Clara had created access points that emerged in hidden locations across their mountain. The grove of aspens to the east, the rock formation to the north, the waterfall half a mile south. This wasn't just for research, he realized aloud. This was an escape route. Lily's flashlight beam played over the floor, catching a series of scuff marks in the dirt. Recent footprints too large to be Clara's. "Dad," she whispered, pointing. "Someone else has been down here." The realization settled cold in Everett's stomach. Clara's warning took on new urgency. They'll come. They weren't the first to enter the tunnel since Clara's death. Everett crouched to examine the footprints, his trained eye assessing their depth and pattern. Heavy individual, probably male. Recent, within the last day or two. Are they coming back? Lily's voice echoed slightly in the chamber. "Sha." Everett placed a finger to his lips. Sound travels strangely down here. They listened together in the lantern-lit silence. At first, there was nothing but their own breathing. Then, a faint sound like distant conversation. "Do you hear that?" Lily whispered. Everett nodded, turning his head to locate the source. The whispers seemed to emanate from the leftmost tunnel, yet when they moved closer to its entrance, the sounds shifted, now seeming to come from behind them. "It's the wind," Everett suggested, though he didn't entirely believe it. "Air moving through the tunnel system creates acoustical anomalies." Lily shook her head. "It sounds like Mom." A chill ran along Everett's spine. The whispers did have a cadence reminiscent of Clara's voice, but it was surely a trick of the mind of grief still fresh. "Let's follow the middle passage," he decided, consulting the map again. "It leads to what your mother labeled as primary research station." As they progressed deeper, Everett noticed markings on the walls, symbols etched into the stone at regular intervals. Some appeared to be scientific notations, while others resembled ancient pictographs. Clara's handwriting appeared beside many of them, making comparative note. "Your mother was documenting something," he murmured, running his fingers over a particularly intricate symbol that resembled a spiral with branching tendrils, translating perhaps. "Mom showed me this one." Lily pointed to a marking resembling a starburst. "She said it means life-bringer." "When did she show you these?" Lily shrugged. "In her plant books. She said they were very old ways of describing plant properties, from people who lived on the mountain long before us." The middle passage gradually widened, the ceiling rising until they no longer needed to stoop. The air grew noticeably warmer, carrying an earthy scent reminiscent of Clara's greenhouse. Everett's light caught a glint of metal ahead, tools hanging from a rack embedded in the wall. Garden trowels, pruning shears, specialized botanical equipment, all meticulously organized and maintained. "She worked down here," he said, regularly. Beside the tools hung a weatherproof container holding notebooks, pencils, and measuring devices. Each notebook was labeled by date, going back 5 years. Everett opened the most recent, dated just a month before Clara's death. "Specimens continue to show remarkable adaptive properties," he read aloud from Clara's precise handwriting. "Luminescence increases with maturation, suggesting heightened enzymatic activity. Third-generation cultures demonstrate 60% more potency than wild specimens. Concerns about mutation rate in controlled environment may be approaching critical threshold for stability." The whispers grew louder as they continued, no longer seeming to come from any particular direction, but rather from the walls themselves. The acoustics of the tunnel created a disorienting effect, as if they were surrounded by dozens of hushed conversations. "Dad?" Lily tugged his sleeve, pointing her flashlight at the ground. A fine layer of dust covered the floor, disturbed by their footprints and those of the previous visitor. But something else caught the light. thousands of tiny impressions, like miniature footprints, creating intricate patterns across the dusty surface. What made these, Everett wondered, crouching for a closer look. The answer came as a soft rustling sound from the darkness ahead. Lily's special flashlight revealed what Everett's more powerful beam had somehow missed. Small creatures scurrying along the edges of the tunnel. They resembled beetles, but their carapaces glowed faintly with bioluminescence, creating a subtle blue-green shimmer. Mom called them light carriers. Lily whispered. She said they help the special plants grow. Everett stared at his daughter. She told you about these, in bedtime stories. Lily's expression was solemn. I thought they were made up. The beetles seemed to respond to Lily's voice, several of them changing direction to move closer to her. One climbed onto her outstretched hand, its tiny legs tickling her palm as its glow intensified. They remember you, Everett said softly, watching in amazement. The whispers crescendoed briefly, then subsided, leaving an expectant silence. Ahead, the tunnel curved sharply, and a different quality of light seeped around the bend. Not the harsh white of their flashlights or the warm yellow of the lanterns, but a soft, pulsing blue. The first chamber, Lily read from the map. That's what's around the corner. The beetle in her palm fluttered delicate, translucent wings and took flight, hovering before them momentarily before proceeding down the tunnel, a luminous guide leading the way into the unknown. The beetle guided them around the bend, its bioluminescent glow creating dancing shadows on the tunnel walls. As they followed, the soft blue light intensified, and the passage opened into a domed chamber, roughly 30 feet in diameter. Everett halted at the threshold, breath catching in his throat. Lily pressed against him, her small hand finding his. It's beautiful, she whispered. The chamber was alive with light. Plants, unlike any Everett had ever studied, filled the space. Ferns with translucent fronds that emitted a gentle blue glow, mushrooms that pulsed with amber light, and flowering vines that spiraled up artificial trellises, their blossoms radiating a soft lavender hue. The ceiling had been carved to create a central skylight, a narrow shaft that presumably reached the surface, allowing a beam of natural sunlight to pierce the darkness. Clara had created an underground garden, an impossibility thriving in the heart of the mountain. Along the walls stood workbenches covered with scientific equipment, microscopes, centrifuges, glass cultivation chambers, and dozens of labeled specimen jars containing samples at various stages of growth. Notebooks were stacked neatly beside each station, filled with Clara's meticulous documentation. Your mother was studying these plants, Everett murmured, approaching a table where pressed specimens had been carefully preserved between glass slides. Species I've never seen before. Lily wandered to a shelf holding clear containers of seedlings. She showed me pictures of these. She said they were her special project. Everett examined one of the specimens, a small fern-like plant with 5-lobed leaves that seemed to pulse faintly even after being pressed. The label read, Specimen 37B, third-generation cultivation. Enzyme activity at 83% above baseline. Potential therapeutic applications, cellular regeneration, immune modulation. Moving through the chamber, he found more evidence of Clara's research. Petri dishes containing plant cultures, careful records of growth rates and chemical analyses, and a refrigerated unit storing what appeared to be refined extracts in labeled vials. Your mother was doing pharmaceutical research, he realized aloud. These plants have medical properties. She used them to help people, Lily said with certainty, touching a glowing vine tenderly. Remember when Mrs. Patterson was sick last winter? Mom gave her something that made her better. Everett did remember. The elderly shopkeeper from the village had been bedridden with pneumonia, her condition deteriorating until Clara had brought her a special herbal tea. Within days, Mrs. Patterson had recovered completely. At the time, Everett had attributed it to Clara's knowledge of traditional remedies. Now he understood she had been using something far more extraordinary. Dad, look at this. Lily stood before a glass cultivation box where plants grew in precise rows. Unlike the others, these appeared ordinary, No bioluminescence, no unusual structures. Everett read the label Control Specimens, Surface Variety. Beside it sat another container labeled Cave Adapted Specimens, Generation 1. The contrast was stark. The surface plants were recognizable species, gentian, arnica, valerian, while their subterranean counterparts had evolved, striking differences, luminous tissues, modified leaf structures, enhanced root systems. These are the same plants, he realized, but these have adapted to life underground. A botanical journal lay open nearby, Clara's handwriting filling its pages. The adaptation process continues to accelerate beyond expected parameters. Plants exposed to the chamber's unique conditions undergo significant genetic modifications within 3 generations. The beetle symbionts appear to facilitate these changes, possibly through enzymatic transfers during pollination. Most intriguing is the enhanced medicinal potency. Compounds previously present in trace amounts are now synthesized at concentrations 50–100 times greater than in surface varieties. Everett turned the page to find a photograph paper clipped to the journal. Clara, kneeling in this very chamber, surrounded by the glowing plants, her expression one of wonder and purpose. The photo was dated 2 years earlier. She found something extraordinary, he said softly. Something that could change medicine forever. Is that why the bad people want it? Lily asked, her perceptiveness startling him. I think so, sweetheart. He continued examining the workbenches, finding more evidence of Clara's meticulous research. Your mother discovered plants that could heal in ways modern medicine can't. That's very valuable. On the central table lay a collection of botanical samples in sealed containers, each labeled with scientific names and dates. One container was marked with a red tag, original specimen handle with extreme caution, toxic in raw form. Everett carefully lifted it. Inside was a small, unremarkable-looking root, with dark blue flesh exposed where it had been cut. This is where it all started, he murmured. The original specimen that led her here. A notebook entry beside it read, exposure to raw extracts continues to produce concerning symptoms. Protective protocols implemented for all handling. Further refinement required before therapeutic applications can be safely developed. The final piece clicked into place in Everett's mind. Clara's mysterious illness, the symptoms that had baffled Dr. Jenkins, had come from her work with these plants. She had poisoned herself accidentally in her research, and now, whoever had been down here before them was after the fruits of her fatal desire. Everett carefully replaced the specimen container, his mind racing with implications. The chamber told a story of brilliant research, painstaking documentation, and fatal miscalculation. Clara had discovered something miraculous but paid with her life. Dad? Lily's voice drew his attention to a small alcove, tucked behind a cluster of glowing ferns. There's something with our names on it. In the alcove sat a metal container, sealed with a combination lock. A label affixed to its lid read simply, for Everett and Lily. When you find your way here, she'd known they would come. Do you know the combination? Lily asked. Everett studied the lock. Not their anniversary, nor Lily's birthday. Clara would have chosen something more secure, knowing what the box contained. The day we found the wolf den, he said suddenly. The expedition that had first brought them together on the mountain. Clara documenting alpine flora, while Everett tracked a female wolf and her pups. It was April 17th. That's 4 numbers, Lily observed. 0417. Everett dialed the combination. The lock clicked open. Inside lay a weatherproof tablet, a portable solar charger, and a handwritten note in Clara's precise script. This explains everything I couldn't tell you in life. I'm sorry for the secrets, my loves. Knowledge is a burden, but also a gift. Everett connected the tablet to the charger, positioning it in the beam of light from the ceiling shaft. After a few minutes, the screen flickered to life, displaying a video file labeled "If I'm Gone." He pressed play. Clara's face filled the screen, recorded in this very chamber, surrounded by the gently glowing plants. She looked tired, but determined, her eyes bright with purpose. "Everett, Lily," she began, her voice sending a shiver through them both. "If you're watching this, I'm gone, and you found your way to my work. I should have shared this with you years ago, but I thought keeping you separate from it would keep you safe. I was wrong." She shifted, adjusting the camera to show more of the chamber behind her. "What I've found here is beyond anything in modern botanical science. These plants evolved in isolation for thousands of years, developing properties that could revolutionize medicine. They can heal diseases we consider incurable, regenerate damaged tissue, and strengthen the immune system beyond our current understanding." Clara lifted a glowing leaf, its edges pulsing with blue light. "I didn't discover this place, I was brought here. 7 years ago, I was part of a government research team studying rare medicinal plants in remote regions. We were contracted by a pharmaceutical corporation called Nexus Biologics. When I found the first specimen, that blue root you've likely seen by now, its properties were so extraordinary that I kept it secret from my team." Her expression darkened. "I had good reason. Nexus wasn't developing medicines for people, they were developing biological agents for military applications, weapons, Everett. They wanted to weaponize nature." She set down the leaf, her hands visibly trembling. "I took the specimen and my research, then disappeared into these mountains. An old man from the indigenous tribe that once lived here found me camping near the first cave entrance. He'd been protecting these plants for decades, the last of a long line of guardians. He showed me the tunnel system, taught me about the symbiotic beetles, helped me understand what I'd found." Clara looked directly into the camera, her gaze intense. "The man died 2 years ago, making me the sole guardian, but Nexus never stopped looking. They've tracked me for years, getting closer each time. Recently they found me." She swallowed hard. "I've been careful with the refined extracts, but not careful enough. The exposure is cumulative. The symptoms start with tremors, then progress to organ failure. There's no treatment once it begins." Tears formed in her eyes. "Lily, remember when you were 5 and had that mysterious fever? None of the doctors could diagnose it. You were dying, sweetheart. In desperation, I used a diluted extract from these plants. It saved you, but it also changed you. You have a connection to this place now. You can see things others can't, sense things about the plants. That's why your flashlight shows you what others miss." Everett glanced at his daughter, who was watching the screen with solemn recognition rather than surprise. "I've hidden complete documentation of my research in the main chamber, what I call the sanctuary. It's deeper in the tunnel system, through the passage marked with the spiral symbol. But be careful. If Nexus finds it, they'll exploit it for all the wrong reasons." Clara leaned closer to the camera. "There are good people who can help protect this discovery, ensure it benefits humanity rather than harms it. Dr. Eleanor Chen at the Global Botanical Research Institute. She was my mentor before Nexus, and I trust her completely. Get my research to her." Her expression softened. "I love you both more than anything in this world. I'm sorry for the burden I've placed on you, but you're stronger together than you know." The video ended, freezing on Clara's face, tired, determined, and filled with love. Lily touched the screen gently. She knew she was dying. Everett nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. All the secrecy, all the careful preparations, Clara had been protecting something far bigger than he had imagined. And now that protection fell to them. Everett stared at the tablet long after the video ended, processing Clara's revelations. The pieces fit together now, her secretive trips, her specialized equipment, the mysterious visitors before her death. "We need to find this Dr. Chen," he said finally. "But first we should see the sanctuary, the main chamber," Clara mentioned. "What about the people looking for Mom's research?" Lily asked, her young face serious beyond her years. "The ones who want to make weapons. We'll be careful," Everett promised, though uncertainty gnawed at him. "Let's gather what we need from here and continue deeper." He photographed Clara's notes with his phone and collected several sealed specimen containers, packing them carefully in his rucksack. The original blue root specimen he wrapped in a cloth and tucked into an inner pocket. "Ready?" he asked Lily, who had been quietly examining the bioluminescent plants. She nodded, her yellow flashlight already pointed toward the tunnel, marked with the spiral symbol. The beetles seemed drawn to her, several of them hovering nearby as if waiting to escort them. Before they could leave, a mechanical chirp echoed through the chamber. Everett froze, then realized it was coming from his own pocket. He pulled out his satellite phone, the emergency one he kept for his fieldwork, the one that only 3 people had the number for. "Everett, it's Harriet Jenkins." The doctor's voice was hushed. "Urgent. Are you at the cabin?" "No, we're out," he replied carefully. "Don't go back there. Men in SUVs arrived in the village an hour ago, asking questions about you and Lily. They claimed to be from some health department, checking on Clara's death, but Miguel at the general store saw guns under their jackets." Everett's blood ran cold. "Did they come up to the cabin?" 2 vehicles headed that way. "I'm calling from the clinic's landline since they were asking if anyone had your phone number." A pause. "Everett, what did Clara get involved in?" He considered how much to share. "Something important, Harriet. Something that could help a lot of people or hurt them in the wrong hands. These men, they don't look like the helping kind." Another pause. "The Martinez cabin is empty for the season. It's stocked with supplies, and no one would think to look for you there." "Thank you," Everett said. "We'll be in touch when we can." As he ended the call, Lily was already gathering her things. "They found us, didn't they? The bad people from Mom's video. They're looking," Everett corrected, trying to project more confidence than he felt. "But they haven't found us yet." They extinguished the lanterns in the first chamber and proceeded down the spiral-marked tunnel, moving with greater urgency. This passage sloped more steeply downward, the air growing noticeably warmer and more humid. After 20 minutes of careful progress, Lily suddenly stopped. "Listen." Everett held his breath. Far behind them, echoing through the tunnel system, came the unmistakable sound of voices, distant, but real. "Someone's in the tunnels," he whispered. They quickened their pace, no longer bothering with stealth. The tunnel forked, and without hesitation, Lily took the right branch, the beetles following her choice. Everett trusted her instinct, remembering Clara's words. "She has a connection to this place." The passage narrowed, forcing them to crouch. Light from their flashlights revealed boot prints in the soft earth, the same heavy tread they'd noticed earlier. Whoever had explored these tunnels before them had taken this route. The prints ended abruptly at a section of wall that appeared solid. Everett ran his hands over the surface, finding no obvious mechanism or doorway. "It's a dead end," he murmured. Lily shook her head, directing her special flashlight at the wall. Under its beam, faint markings appeared that Everett's light hadn't revealed. Symbols like those they'd seen earlier, forming a circular pattern. "Mum showed me this," Lily whispered. "It's a door, but you have to know how to open it." She touched specific symbols in sequence. With a soft grinding sound, a section of wall receded and then slid aside, revealing a hidden passage. "How did you—" "From her stories," Lily said simply. She called them the Guardian's Passages. They slipped through the opening. Once inside, Lily pressed another symbol, and the wall slid closed behind them. Just in time. The sounds of pursuit grew louder, flashlight beams visible through the cracks before the door sealed completely. This new tunnel was different, the walls smoother, the construction more refined. Small niches held unlit crystal lamps that Lily systematically illuminated using a striker tool hanging on the wall. The crystals glowed with a blue-white light, similar to the bioluminescent plants. "These are emergency routes," Lily explained, moving with surprising confidence. "Mom said they connect all the important chambers, but stay hidden from those who don't belong." Everett stared at his daughter with new understanding. Clara's bedtime stories had been preparation, assurance that Lily would know how to navigate these passages, if needed. "Do you know the way to the sanctuary?" he asked. Lily nodded, her small face solemn in the crystal light. "Follow me." Behind them, muffled by the hidden door but still audible, came the sounds of their pursuers, searching for the path forward, the heavy footfalls and frustrated voices of men who knew exactly what they were looking for. The race for Clara's discovery had begun. The hidden passage wound deeper into the mountain, crystal lamps illuminating their path with steady blue-white light. Everett marveled at Lily's confidence as she led the way, seemingly familiar with each turn and junction. "Your mother prepared you well," he observed quietly. "She said knowledge is the best protection." Lily replied, pausing at an intersection to consider her path. "Left here. The right tunnel leads to a surface exit." They continued in silence, the only sounds their footsteps and distant water dripping somewhere in the darkness. The air grew warmer, carrying a sweet, earthy scent, reminiscent of Clara's greenhouse. After navigating several more turns, they reached a chamber smaller than the first, but more sophisticated in its construction. The walls were smoother here, almost polished, with intricate carvings that spiraled across the ceiling. At the center stood a pedestal supporting a sealed glass case. Inside rested a single item, an identification badge with Clara's photograph. The name printed beneath read Dr. Clara Blackwood, Special Research Division, alongside a government seal and the project designation, Genesis. "Your mother worked for the government," Everett said, lifting the case to examine the badge more closely. "This must be from before she disappeared." "There's another message." Lily pointed to a tablet, similar to the one they'd found earlier, resting in a charging cradle beside the pedestal. Everett activated the screen. Clara's face appeared once more, but she looked younger, her hair shorter, her expression less weathered by the mountain years. "This recording is from 5 years ago," she began. "By now you'll have seen my first message and learned about my work with the plants, but there's more you need to understand about Project Genesis and why I fled." She held up the badge they'd just found. "I was recruited to a classified botanical research initiative aimed at developing plant-based medical technologies. The official mission was humanitarian, creating treatments for diseases that resist conventional medicine. Our team made extraordinary breakthroughs, particularly with rare specimens from isolated ecosystems." Clara's expression darkened. 3 months into the project, I discovered that Nexus Biologics, the pharmaceutical corporation funding our research, had a secondary agenda. They were selectively developing compounds with potential as biological weapons, treatments that could be reversed to become pathogen, medicines that could be weaponized. She leaned closer to the camera, her voice dropping. "When I raised concerns with my supervisor, I was removed from key research areas, but not before I discovered that Nexus had already begun weaponization tests, unauthorized and unmonitored. I gathered what evidence I could and planned to blow the whistle." Clara held up a vial containing a blue-tinged liquid. "Then I found the root specimen in these mountains. Its properties eclipsed anything we'd studied in the lab. I realized that if Nexus obtained it, the weaponization potential would be catastrophic. So I made a choice. I took my research and the specimen and disappeared." She set down the vial. "I established contact with an elder from the indigenous tribe that once populated these mountains. He showed me the tunnel system, taught me about the plants that had evolved here in isolation for thousands of years. He explained that his people had been guardians of these plants for generations, using their healing properties but protecting them from exploitation." Clara's expression softened as she continued. "Then Lily got sick. The fever that no doctor could diagnose. It was actually a rare autoimmune condition, fatal without treatment. In desperation, I used a refined extract from the plants." She paused, emotion crossing her face. "It saved her life, but it did more than that. It changed her at a cellular level, created a symbiotic relationship between her and the plants. That's why she can see things others can't, why she can communicate with the beetles, why the plants respond to her presence. Everett glanced at Lily, who was watching the screen with solemn recognition. I've continued my research, refining the extracts, documenting the plant's properties. The potential to heal is enormous. Cancer, degenerative diseases, traumatic injuries, all treatable with properly processed compounds from these plants. Clara lifted a notebook filled with handwritten formulas. All my research is stored in the sanctuary, the main chamber. But Everett, Lily, you must get it to Dr. Eleanor Chen at the Global Botanical Research Institute. She has the integrity and the influence to ensure this discovery benefits humanity without falling into weapons development. Her expression grew urgent. Nexus has never stopped looking for me. They've traced me to these mountains, and they're getting closer. If you're watching this, they may have already found the cabin. You need to reach the sanctuary, recover my complete research, and escape through the eastern exit. It emerges 5 miles from the cabin, near the old fire watchtower. Clara took a deep breath. One last thing, the illness that likely took my life wasn't just from careless exposure. I've been methodically testing the extracts on myself, documenting the effects. I knew the risks, but the potential to help people outweighed my personal safety. That choice was mine alone. She smiled sadly. I love you both. Trust Lily's instincts in the tunnels. She's connected to this place in ways even she doesn't fully understand yet. You're stronger together than apart. The recording ended. Everett stood motionless, absorbing this deeper layer of truth. Clara hadn't just been a botanical researcher who stumbled upon a discovery. She'd been a government scientist who became a whistleblower, then a guardian of something powerful enough to change the course of medicine, or in the wrong hands, to become a weapon beyond imagination. Everett raced through the smoke-filled tunnel, lungs burning as he navigated by memory and instinct. The luminous haze had bought them time, but the professional hunters would not be deterred for long. At the junction Lily had mentioned, he found her waiting, pressed against the wall, eyes wide but calm. This way, she whispered, pointing to the rightmost passage. It's longer but less obvious. They moved swiftly through the narrower tunnel, which twisted sharply upward before leveling out. The crystal lamps here were dormant, but a trail of softly glowing beetles provided just enough light to avoid stumbling. How do you know which way? Everett asked as they navigated a particularly complex intersection. I can feel it, Lily replied simply, like remembering a place you've been before. After what seemed like hours, but was likely only 40 minutes, the tunnel began to change character. The smooth-cut walls gave way to more natural surfaces, and the air carried a hint of pine and snow. They were nearing the surface. The passage ended at a stone staircase, leading to a wooden door set into the ceiling. Unlike the trapdoor at the cabin, this one was reinforced with metal bands and secured with an unusual lock mechanism. Do you know how to open it? Everett asked, examining the unfamiliar design. Lily nodded, reaching for a small niche beside the door where an intricately carved key lay hidden. She inserted it into the lock, turned it in a specific pattern, and the mechanism released with a soft click. The door opened into what appeared to be the floor of a small cabin. As they emerged, Everett immediately noticed 3 things. The cabin was warm, a fire crackled in a stone hearth, and they were not alone. An elderly man sat in a handcrafted chair by the fire, his weathered face as textured as the mountain stone. Deep lines etched his copper-hued skin, and his silver hair was bound in a single braid that hung over one shoulder. He regarded them with dark eyes that held neither surprise nor concern. Clara's family, he said, his voice like wind through dry grass. I have been waiting. Lily showed no fear, approaching the old man with recognition in her eyes. You're the one from Mom's photograph. The guardian before her. The man nodded once. I am Joseph Two Rivers. Clara called me teacher. His gaze moved to Everett. You are the wolf man she chose. Everett stepped forward cautiously. You knew my wife. I taught her about the plants. She taught me about science. Together we protected the mountain's heart. Joseph gestured to chairs beside the fire. Sit. You have questions, but little time. As they settled by the warmth, Everett noted the cabin's sparse but functional interior. Shelves lined with jars of dried plants and tinctures, handcrafted furniture, and most interestingly modern scientific equipment tucked discreetly in one corner. The men who are hunting us, Everett began. Arrived 3 days ago, Joseph finished. Watching the mountain, setting traps, searching for Clara's work, he turned to Lily. You have been to the sanctuary. You have seen what she protected. Lily nodded. The glowing glies that can heal people. Mom said they're special. They are ancient, Joseph corrected gently. My people discovered them centuries ago, when the great cave was exposed by an earthquake. Our healers learned their properties, used them sparingly to treat illness. We became their guardians, protecting them from those who would exploit them. From a wooden box beside his chair, Joseph withdrew a faded photograph, a much younger version of himself standing alongside a woman who resembled Clara. Both in lab coats, a university building visible in the background. When I was young, I studied native plant medicine at the university. Clara's mother was my professor. Years later, when Clara came to these mountains as a government scientist, I recognized her. Everett studied the photograph with surprise. Clara never mentioned her mother was an ethnobotanist. There is much she did not tell you, Joseph said without judgment, to protect you and the knowledge. But she told me in her stories, Lily interjected, about you and the beetles and how to find the hidden paths. Joseph's weathered face softened. She prepared you, little one. She knew what you would become. What do you mean? Everett asked. The old man studied Lily with knowing eyes. When Clara used the plant medicine to save her child, she created something new, a bridge between worlds. The child can speak to the plants, and their keeper. He nodded toward a small beetle that had followed them from the tunnel, now resting on Lily's shoulder. The Lightbringers recognize her as guardian. Lily touched the beetle gently. Mom said I was different after I got sick. Not sick, Joseph corrected. Transforming. As all guardians must. He turned to Everett. The men who hunt you will not stop. They have invested too much, and what Clara discovered is worth billions to them. Weapons more valuable than gold. We have her research, Everett said, patting the drive in his pocket. We need to get it to Dr. Eleanor Chen at the Global Botanical Research Institute. Joseph nodded. A good choice. But first, you must escape the mountain. They are closing their net, watching all roads. He rose stiffly, retrieving a worn leather case from a shelf. Clara left this for you. Inside lay a satellite phone, newer than Everett's, and a USB drive, labeled Insurance. The phone has one number programmed, a friend who can help you reach Dr. Chen. The drive contains evidence of what Nexus Biologics planned to do with the plant compounds. Clara called it her dead man Nix. From outside came the distant sound of an engine, somewhere on the mountain road below. Joseph moved to a window, peering through a crack in the shutters. They are searching methodically. This cabin will be discovered by morning. He turned to Everett with grave determination. I will lead them away from the eastern path at dawn. You will take the child to the old mining road beyond the ridge. You can't confront them alone, Everett protested. These men are dangerous. Joseph smiled, a flash of fierce pride crossing his ancient features. I have protected these mountains for 60 years, Wolfman. I have paths they will never find, and allies they cannot see. His hand rested briefly on Lily's head. Now the guardianship passes to a new generation. Dawn painted the eastern sky with pale fire, as Everett and Lily prepared to leave Joseph's cabin. The old man had equipped them with essentials, dried food, water purification tablets, a topographical map marked with safe routes, and most importantly, knowledge. The mining road is seldom used, Joseph explained, tracing the path on the map. It will lead you to Highway 16. From there you can reach the town of Riverton. where my friend owns the Blue Spruce Motel. Give him this." He handed Everett a wooden token carved with an intricate spiral symbol. "He will provide transportation to the city. What about you?" Lily asked, concern in her young voice. Joseph's weathered face softened. "I will create a diversion on the western slope, then return to the tunnels. The mountain protects its own." Before they could discuss further, Joseph's head snapped up, his body tensing like a deer scenting a predator. "Someone comes," he whispered, moving silently to the window. "Single person, on foot." Everett joined him, peering through the narrow gap in the shutters. Through the morning mist, a familiar figure approached. Miguel Santos from the general store in the village, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "It's Miguel," Everett said with relief. "He's a friend." Joseph's expression remained guarded. How does he know this place? The question hung in the air as Miguel reached the cabin door and knocked urgently. "Everett, are you in there? I need to speak with you." After a moment's hesitation, Everett opened the door. Miguel's usually cheerful face was drawn with anxiety, his eyes darting nervously behind him. "Thank God," he breathed. "I've been searching half the night. You need to leave immediately. The men in the village, they're everywhere, questioning everyone. How did you find us?" Joseph asked, his voice neutral but his stance wary. Miguel hesitated. "Jenkins mentioned you might head for the old watchtower. I know these mountains, this cabin is on the way." His gaze dropped. "But I wasn't the only one," she told. Everett felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "What do you—" From his coat pocket, Miguel withdrew a crumpled note and handed it to Everett. "They made me carry this. I'm sorry, my friend." The note was a simple hand-drawn map with the cabin's location circled, along with the words "Blackwood family heading here with research materials. Intercept with minimal force. Child is key asset." "You led them to us," Everett realized, his voice hollow. Not willingly, Miguel protested, genuine anguish in his expression. "They have my daughter came to our home 2 nights ago. Said they were government agents investigating a biological threat. When I questioned their authority, they took Sophia as insurance for community cooperation." Joseph moved with surprising swiftness for his age, gathering essential items into a— "How much time do we have?" "An hour, maybe less," Miguel replied. "They're assembling at the ranger station, planning their approach." He turned to Everett. "I had to warn you, even though they're watching me. Clara was good to my family. She treated Sophia's asthma when no doctor could help." Everett's mind raced. The planned eastern escape route would be compromised if Miguel had been followed. "We need a new path," he said to Joseph. The old man nodded. "There is another way through the north tunnel. It emerges near Bear Creek Canyon, farther from roads but safer from pursuit." "I can delay them," Miguel offered. "Tell them I lost your trail at the river crossing." Joseph studied the storekeeper carefully, then made a decision. "Take this." He handed Miguel a small pouch of dried herbs. "For your daughter. It will help her breathe when they return her." Miguel accepted it with trembling hands. "They said they're developing medicines from plants on this mountain, but these men, they don't act like doctors or scientists." "They're not," Lily said quietly. "They want to make weapons with Mom's plants." Miguel's eyes widened. "Weapons? Dios mío." He looked at his watch anxiously. "I should go back, maintain the deception." "Wait," Everett said, struck by a thought. "Do you know who's leading them? The man giving orders?" "A Dr. Davis," Miguel replied. "Tall man, gray at the temples, very cold eyes. He speaks about Clara's work like it belongs to him." Recognitions flashed through Everett. The name from Clara's second video, her former supervisor at Project Genesis. The one who had redirected her research toward weaponization. "We need to move," Joseph urged. "I will show you the north tunnel entrance." As they gathered their supplies, Lily approached Miguel. "Will Sophia be okay?" The storekeeper knelt to her level. "She's a strong girl, like you." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. "I found this in one of the men's vehicles when I delivered supplies." He handed her a small memory card. They don't know I took it. It has their logos on it. Maybe it will help you." As Miguel prepared to leave, creating a false trail for their pursuers, Everett gripped his shoulder. "We don't blame you. They gave you an impossible choice." "Clara once told me," Miguel replied softly, "that the most important choices are the ones that protect our children." He glanced at Lily. She understood that better than anyone. After he departed, Joseph led them through a hidden door in the cabin's root cellar, down into another section of the tunnel system. As they descended, Everett examined the memory card Miguel had given them, discovering it was compatible with the tablet from Clara's research station. When inserted, the card revealed a disturbing truth. Internal Nexus Biologics documents outlining Project Harvest, the planned seizure of Clara's research and the acquisition of the child test subject for further study. Lily wasn't just the daughter of the woman who had discovered the plants. In their eyes, she was a successful experiment, living proof of the plant's transformative potential, and they wanted her as much as they wanted the research. Everett raced through the smoke-filled tunnel, lungs burning as he navigated by memory and instinct. The luminous haze had bought them time, but the professional hunters would not be deterred for long. At the junction Lily had mentioned, he found her waiting, pressed against the wall, eyes wide but calm. "This way," she whispered, pointing to the rightmost passage. "It's longer but less obvious." They moved swiftly through the narrower tunnel, which twisted sharply upward before leveling out. The crystal lamps here were dormant, but a trail of softly glowing beetles provided just enough light to avoid stumbling. "How do you know which way?" Everett asked, as they navigated a particularly complex intersection. "I can feel it," Lily replied simply, "like remembering a place you've been before, after what seemed like hours but was likely only 40 minutes. The tunnel began and changed character. The smooth-cut walls gave way to more natural surfaces, and the air carried a hint of pine and snow. They were nearing the surface. The passage ended at a pit-in staircase leading to a wooden door set into the ceiling. Unlike the trapdoor at the cabin, this one was reinforced with metal bands and secured with an unusual lock mechanism. "Do you know how to open it?" Everett asked, examining the unfamiliar design. Lily nodded, reaching for a small niche beside the door where an intricately carved key lay hidden. She inserted it into the lock, turned it in a specific pattern, and the mechanism released with a soft click. The door opened into what appeared to be the floor of a small cabin. As they emerged, Everett immediately noticed three things. The cabin was warm, a fire crackled in a stone hearth, and they were not alone. An elderly man sat in a hand-crafted chair by the fire, his weathered face as textured as the mountain stone. Deep lines etched his copper-hued skin, and his silver hair was bound in a single braid that hung over one shoulder. He regarded them with dark eyes that held neither surprise nor concern. "Clara's family," he said, his voice like wind through dry grass. "I have been waiting." Lily showed no fear, approaching the old man with recognition in her eyes. "You're the one from Mom's photograph." The guardian before her. The man nodded once. "I am Joseph Two Rivers. Clara called me teacher." His gaze moved to Everett. "You are the wolf man she chose." Everett stepped forward cautiously. "You knew my wife. I taught her about the plants. She taught me about science. Together we protected the mountain's heart." Joseph gestured to chairs beside the fire. "Sit. You have questions but little time." As they settled by the warmth, Everett noted the cabin's sparse but functional interior. Shelves lined with jars of dried plants and tinctures, handcrafted furniture, and most interestingly modern scientific equipment tucked discreetly in one corner. "The men who were hunting us," Everett began, "arrived 3 days ago." Joseph finished, "watching the mountain, setting traps, searching for Clara's work." He turned to Lily. "You have been to the sanctuary. You have seen what she protected." Lily nodded. "The glowing plants that can heal people." "Mom said they're special." "They are ancient," Joseph corrected gently. My people discovered them centuries ago when the Great Cave was exposed by an earthquake. Our healers learned their properties, used them sparingly to treat illness. We became their guardians, protecting them from those who would exploit them. From a wooden box beside his chair, Joseph withdrew a faded photograph, a much younger version of himself standing alongside a woman who resembled Clara, both in lab coats, a university building visible in the background. When I was young, I studied native plant medicine at the university. Clara's mother was my professor. Years later, when Clara came to these mountains as a government scientist, I recognized her. Everett studied the photograph with surprise. Clara never mentioned her mother was an ethnobotanist. There is much she did not tell you, Joseph said without judgment, to protect you and the knowledge, but she told me in her stories, Lily interjected, about you and the beetles and how to find the hidden paths. Joseph's weathered face softened. She prepared you, little one. She knew what you would become. What do you mean? Everett asked. The old man studied Lily with knowing eyes. When Clara used the plant medicine to save her child, she created something new, a bridge between worlds. The child can speak to the plants and their keepers. He nodded toward a small beetle that had followed them from the tunnel, now resting on Lily's shoulder. The light bringers recognize her as guardian. Lily dollied deeply gently. Mom said I was different after I got sick. Not sick, Joseph corrected. Transforming. As all guardians must. He turned to Everett. The men who hunt you will not stop. They have invested too much. And what Clara discovered is worth billions to them, weapons more valuable than gold. We have her research, Everett said, patting the drive in his pocket. We need to get it to Dr. Eleanor Chen at the Global Botanical Research Institute. Joseph nodded. A good choice. But first, you must escape the mountain. They are closing their net, watching all roads. He rose stiffly, retrieving a worn leather case from a shelf. Clara left this for you. Inside lay a satellite phone, newer than Everett's, and a USB drive labeled Insurance. The phone has one number programmed, a friend who can help you reach Dr. Chen. The drive contains evidence of what Nexus Biologics planned to do with the plant compounds. Clara called it her dead man switch. From outside came the distant sound of an engine somewhere on the mountain road below. Joseph moved to a window, peering through a crack in the shutters. They are searching methodically. This cabin will be discovered by morning. He turned to Everett with grave determination. I will lead them away from the eastern path at dawn. You will take the child to the old mining road beyond the ridge. You can't confront them alone, Everett protested. These men are dangerous. Joseph smiled, a flash of fierce pride crossing his ancient features. I have protected these mountains for 60 years, Wolfman. I have paths they will never find and allies they cannot see. His hand rested briefly on Lily's head. Now the guardianship passes to a new generation. Dawn painted the eastern sky with pale fire, as Everett and Lily prepared to leave Joseph's cabin. The old man had equipped them with essentials, dried food, water purification tablets, a topographical map marked with safe routes, and most importantly, knowledge. The mining road is seldom used, Joseph explained, tracing the path on the map. It will lead you to Highway 16. From there you can reach the town of Riverton, where my friend owns the Blue Spruce Motel. Give him this. He handed Everett a wooden token, carved with an intricate spiral symbol. He will provide transportation to the city. What about you? Lily asked, concern in her young voice. Joseph's weathered face softened. I will create a diversion on the western slope, then return to the tunnels. The mountain protects its own. Before they could discuss further, Joseph's head snapped up, his body tensing like a deer scenting a predator. Someone comes, he whispered, moving silently to the window. Single person, on foot. Everett joined him, peering through the narrow gap in the shutters. Through the morning mist, a familiar figure approached. Miguel Santos from the general store in the village. his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "It's Miguel," Everett said with relief. "He's a friend." Joseph's expression remained guarded. How does he know this place? The question hung in the air as Miguel reached the cabin door and knocked urgently. "Everett, are you in there? I need to speak with you." After a moment's hesitation, Everett opened the door. Miguel's usually cheerful face was drawn with anxiety, his eyes darting nervously behind him. "Thank God," he breathed. "I've been searching half the night. You need to leave immediately. The men in the village, they're everywhere, questioning everyone. How did you find us?" Joseph asked, his voice neutral but his stance wary. Miguel hesitated. "Dr. Jenkins mentioned you might head for the old watchtower. I know these mountains. This cabin is on the way." His gaze dropped. "But I wasn't the only one," she told. Everett felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "What do you mean?" From his coat pocket, Miguel withdrew a crumpled note and handed it to Everett. "They made me carry this. I'm sorry, my friend." The note was a simple hand-drawn map with the cabin's location circled, along with the words "Blackwood family heading here with research materials. Intercept with minimal force. Child is key asset. You led them to us," Everett realized, his voice hollow. "Not willingly," Miguel protested, genuine anguish in his expression. "They have my daughter. Came to our home 2 nights ago. Said they were government agents, investigating a biological threat. When I questioned their authority, they took Sophia as insurance for community cooperation." Joseph moved with surprising swiftness for his age, gathering essential items into a pack. "How much time do we have?" "An hour, maybe less," Miguel replied. "They're assembling at the ranger station, planning their approach." He turned to Everett. "I had to warn you, even though they're watching me. Clara was good to my family. She treated Sophia's asthma when no doctor could help." Everett's mind raced. The planned eastern escape route would be compromised if Miguel had been followed. "We need a new path," he said to Joseph. The old man nodded. "There is another way, through the north tunnel. It emerges near Bear Creek Canyon, farther from roads, but safer from pursuit." "I can delay them," Miguel offered. "Tell them I lost your trail at the river crossing." Joseph studied the storekeeper carefully, then made a decision. "Take this." He handed Miguel a small pouch of dried herbs. "For your daughter. It will help her breathe when they return." Miguel accepted it with trembling hands. "They said they're developing medicines from plants on this mountain. But these men, they don't act like doctors or scientists." "They're not," Lily said quietly. "They want to make weapons with Mom's plants." Miguel's eyes widened. "Weapons? Dios mío." He looked at his watch anxiously. "I should go back, maintain the deception." "Wait," Everett said, struck by a thought. "Do you know who's leading them? The man giving orders?" "A Dr. Davis," Miguel replied. "Tall man, grey at the temples, very cold eyes. He speaks about Clara's work like it belongs to him." Recognitions flashed through Everett. The name from Clara's second video, her former supervisor at Project Genesis. The one who had redirected her research toward weaponization. "We need to move," Joseph urged. "I will show you the north tunnel entrance." As they gathered their supplies, Lily approached Miguel. "Will Sophia be okay?" The storekeeper knelt to her level. "She's a strong girl, like you." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. "I found this in one of the men's vehicles when I delivered supplies." He handed her a small memory card. "They don't know I took it. It has their logos on it. Maybe it will help you." As Miguel prepared to leave, creating a false trail for their pursuers, Everett gripped his shoulder. "We don't blame you. They gave you an impossible choice." "Clara once told me," Miguel replied softly, "that the most important choices are the ones that protect our children." He glanced at Lily. She understood that better than anyone. After he departed, Joseph led them through a hidden door in the cabin's root cellar, down into another section of the tunnel system. As they descended, Everett examined the memory card Miguel had given them, discovering it was compatible with the tablet from Clara's research station. When inserted, the card revealed a disturbing truth. Internal Nexus Biologics documents outlining Project Harvest, the planned seizure of Clara's research and the acquisition of the child test subject for further study. Lily wasn't just the daughter of the woman who had discovered the plants. In their eyes, she was a successful experiment, living proof of the plant's transformative potential. And they wanted her as much as they wanted the research. The north tunnel descended steeply before leveling into a passage Everett hadn't seen before. Unlike the previous sections with their careful engineering, this one followed natural cave formations, requiring them to climb over fallen rocks and wade through shallow underground streams. This path is ancient, Joseph explained as they navigated a particularly narrow section, used by my ancestors long before Clara expanded the tunnel system. Lily moved with surprising confidence through the darkness, the bioluminescent beetles consistently gathering around her, providing gentle illumination. Everett noticed their numbers had increased. Dozens now accompanied them, responding to his daughter's presence. The Lightbringers know what's at stake, Joseph observed. They protect the new guardian. After an hour of careful progress, they reached a chamber smaller than the sanctuary, but similar in design. Here, the natural cave had been modified with shelving units, a small laboratory setup, and medical equipment. Unlike the sanctuary with its spectacular living wall, this space was clearly designed for practical application. Clara's treatment facility, Joseph said, gesturing to the examination table at the center, where she refined the healing protocols. Everett examined the equipment, much of it hospital-grade, somehow transported into this remote underground chamber. She treated patients here, those who could not be helped by conventional medicine, Joseph confirmed. People from surrounding communities who had exhausted all options. Clara developed different formulations for different conditions. On a shelf behind the examination table stood rows of sealed vials containing an iridescent liquid that seemed to capture and reflect light in hypnotic patterns. Each was meticulously labeled with a condition and dosage. Terminal lymphoma stage 4, advanced Parkinson's, acute radiation exposure. These are completed treatments, Everett realized, ready for use. Clara's finished work, Joseph agreed. What she called her legacy. Lily approached a filing cabinet in the corner. Patient records, she said, opening a drawer filled with folders. Each contained detailed case histories, photographs, treatment protocols, and documented results. Everett selected one at random, a middle-aged woman with advanced pancreatic cancer, given 3 months to live. The after photos showed her hiking in mountain terrain, smiling broadly at the camera. The date stamp indicated it was taken 2 years after her terminal diagnosis. She cured terminal cancer, he whispered, and degenerative diseases, radiation poisoning, traumatic brain injuries, conditions modern medicine considers untreatable. Joseph added, but she needed more time to eliminate the side effects. Side effects? Everett questioned. The old man gestured to Lily, who was examining the vials with unusual intensity. Cellular changes, integration with the plant compounds at a genetic level. In adults, these changes are minor. Enhanced immune response, accelerated healing. In children, he left the implication hanging. Understanding dawned. That's why they want Lily. She's the only child who's received the treatment and survived the integration process, Joseph confirmed. Clara perfected the formula after treating her daughter. The child doses in these vials are stable, safe, but Clara died before publishing her methods. Lily had moved to a desk where a leather-bound journal lay open. This is Mom's handwriting, she said, but not her science notes. Everett joined her, recognizing Clara's precise script. Unlike her technical documentation, this was personal, a record of her patients' stories. Each entry detailed not just medical outcomes, but human impact. A grandfather, able to attend his granddaughter's wedding, a teacher returning to the classroom, A young mother watching her children grow. She wasn't just developing medicine, Everett realized. She was healing people all along, at great personal risk. Joseph added, each treatment required her direct involvement, exposed her to the raw compounds. The cumulative effect killed her, Everett finished, the final piece falling into place. Clara hadn't just accidentally poisoned herself, she had sacrificed herself, knowingly absorbing toxicity with each treatment she administered. Lily had wandered to another section of the chamber, where a sophisticated computer system hummed quietly. She pressed a button, and a holographic display illuminated, showing molecular structures rotating in 3 dimensions. "Mom's final project," she said with certainty. She called it the Universal Protocol. The display showed the evolutionary pathway of the plant compounds, from their original form through various refinements. The final structure, labeled Generation 7, was highlighted with the notation stable, no toxic residue, ready for distribution. She completed it, Joseph said, awe in his voice. The final formula, safe for widespread use. Beside the computer sat a single vial of liquid, more radiant than the others, its iridescent contents shifting between blue, green, and violet. The label read simply, "The Cure, Universal Application." Everett carefully lifted the vial. This is what they're really after, not just the research or the plants. This final formula, which could heal millions, Joseph said, or become the most powerful biological weapon ever created, depending on who controls it. Lily touched the vial her father held, and the liquid inside seemed to respond, pulsing brighter for a moment. "Mom made this for everyone," she said firmly. "Not just for people with money or power." The sound of distant explosions reverberated through the tunnel system, muffled but unmistakable. "They found one of the main entrances," Joseph said grimly. "We must move quickly." Bear Creek Canyon is still an hour away through the tunnels. As Everett secured the precious vial in a padded container, Lily downloaded the complete research data from the computer system. Joseph gathered essential records from the filing cabinet, proof of Clara's successes, evidence of what her work could mean for humanity. "The north exit will take you beyond their search perimeter," Joseph said as they prepared to leave. "But first, there's one more thing Clara wanted you to have." From a locked cabinet, he withdrew a metal box containing a satellite phone and a flash drive. "Her insurance policy. If we're separated, use this to contact Eleanor Chen directly." Clara recorded everything, including Nexus Biologics' plans for weaponization. The explosions grew louder, closer. Time was running out. "They're destroying her life's work," Everett said, anger rising in his chest. "No," Lily replied with quiet certainty, patting her backpack containing the research and the precious vial. "We're carrying her life's work with us." The explosions grew more frequent as they hurried through the north tunnel, ute and small debris raining down with each concussive blast. Joseph led them with the sure-footed confidence of someone who had traveled these paths for decades, his weathered hand occasionally steadying Lily when the ground trembled beneath them. "They're using shaped charges," Everett observed grimly. "Military grade. These aren't researchers, they're demolition experts." "Destroying what they cannot control," Joseph agreed. "A tactic as old as conquest itself." The tunnel narrowed to a passage barely wide enough for an adult's shoulders, forcing them to proceed single file. Everett noticed Joseph removing items from small niches in the walls as they passed. Packets of dried plants, carved wooden containers, small bundles wrapped in oilcloth. "Supplies I've cached over the years," the old man explained. We need them before we reach safety." A particularly violent explosion shook the tunnel, sending a shower of rock fragments down on them. Lily stumbled, and Everett pulled her close, shielding her with his body. "They're getting closer," she whispered, her voice steady despite the danger. Joseph paused at a junction where 3 tunnels converged. He cocked his head, listening intently, then pointed to the rightmost passage. "This way. The left tunnel is likely compromised." As they turned into the right passage, a beam of light flashed briefly from the left tunnel, followed by hushed voices and the click of weapons being readied. Down, Joseph hissed, pulling them into a shallow alcove just as gunfire erupted. Bullets striking the stone where they had stood moments before. Armed pursuit, a voice reported from the darkness. 3 subjects, heading north through Section 7. Military communications, Everett whispered. These aren't corporate security, they're mercenaries. Joseph reached into his pack, withdrawing what looked like a bundle of dried herbs bound with twine. With practiced movements, he struck a match and lit one end. Instead of burning with flame, it produced a thick, acrid smoke that quickly filled the passageway. "Cover your mouths," he instructed, pressing cloth masks into their hands. "The smoke disorients but won't harm us if we're protected." From the left tunnel came coughing and confused shouts as the smoke did its work. Joseph seized the opportunity, leading them swiftly down the right passage, which sloped sharply upward. "This route is steeper, but will bring us out a mile east of our original exit," he explained between labored breaths. "Less accessible terrain, but harder to track." They climbed in silence for several minutes, the sounds of pursuit fading behind. The tunnel widened into a chamber, with a small underground spring bubbling from the rock face. Joseph paused, retrieving an ancient-looking bow and a quiver of arrows from a hidden compartment in the wall. "My father's," he said simply, "and his father's before him." Everett eyed the weapon with surprise. "Will that help against automatic weapons?" Joseph's weathered face creased in a grim smile. "The arrow finds what bullets cannot." He dipped the arrowheads into a pouch of dark paste. Concentrated extract from the sleep-bringing vine. One scratch brings unconsciousness within seconds. The old guardian's resourcefulness gave Everett a flicker of hope. Perhaps they could navigate this deadly game after all. Their respite was brief. From somewhere below came the clatter of equipment and the methodical sounds of a team moving with tactical precision. "They're tracking us," Everett realized. But how? Lily suddenly grabbed at her jacket pocket, withdrawing a small metallic object, the size of a button. "Dad, look!" Everett recognized it immediately. A tracking device, likely planted when they were at the cabin. "Drop it," he ordered. "They've been following this all along." Joseph crushed the device under his boot, but his expression remained grave. "They're too close now. It won't matter." The chamber had 3 exits besides the one they'd entered through. Joseph pointed to the narrowest opening, high on the eastern wall. "That passage leads most directly to the surface, but they'll expect that choice." He indicated another tunnel, partially obscured by rock formations. "This one takes a winding route, harder to navigate, but with multiple exit points. The third option descended back toward the heart of the mountain, and this returns to the deeper tunnels, where we might lose them in the network." Everett assessed their options with the cold logic of survival. The direct route was a trap waiting to happen. The winding path offered possibilities, but would be slow-going. The descent might buy them time, but eventually they would need to surface. "We split up," he said finally. "You take Lily through the winding route. I'll take the research and the vial through the direct path as a decoy." "No," Lily protested immediately. "Mom said we're stronger together." Joseph nodded in agreement. "The child is right. Separation serves our enemy." "Then what?" Everett demanded, the pressure of pursuit weighing heavily. Joseph removed his pack, extracting several small cloth pouches and 3 crystal vials. "We prepare the mountain to fight for us." He handed Everett and Lily each a vial. "Break these at choke points behind us. The beetles will respond to the chemical signature." With practiced efficiency, the old man began placing the pouches at strategic points around the chamber, particularly near the entrance they had used. "These will release spores from the dream moss when disturbed. Anyone without protection will experience disorientation, confused vision." Lily opened her backpack, retrieving a handful of the bioluminescent beetles that had been traveling with them. With whispered words Everett couldn't understand, she placed them at intervals along the walls. The insects remained stationed where she positioned them, their glow subtly intensifying. "Sentinels," Joseph explained with approval. They will signal others if intruders pass. The sounds of pursuit grew louder, multiple teams converging from different directions. Time was running out, the winding path. Everett decided, but we set traps at all three entrances to confuse them. As they worked quickly to prepare their defenses, Joseph pursed his bow into Everett's hands. You were a hunter before you studied wolves. Remember those skills now. The weight of the ancient weapon felt strangely right in Everett's grip, a primal connection to the mountain and its secrets. As the first flashlight beams penetrated the darkness of the chamber entrance, he nocked an arrow, the plant-derived toxin glistening on its tip. They retreated into the winding passage just as the first of their pursuers entered the chamber, night vision goggles, revealing their military precision. The mountain's defense had begun. The winding passage proved aptly named, twisting through the mountain like a restless serpent. Behind them, shouts and confused orders echoed as their pursuers encountered Joseph's traps. Twice they heard the distinctive thud of bodies hitting stone, the dream moss doing its work. It won't stop them for long, Joseph cautioned as they navigated a particularly narrow section. Their leaders will recognize the plant effects and adapt. Everett nodded grimly. We need to reach the surface before they regroup. The passage began to slope upward, the air growing fresher, hints of pine and mountain snow replacing the mineral scent of deep stone. Lily moved with increasing urgency, the beetles around her pulsing with a faster, more intense rhythm. They're trying to tell us something, she whispered, pausing to listen to some communication only she could perceive. Joseph watched her with knowing eyes. The light-bringers sensed danger ahead. Everett readied the bow, its ancient wood smooth beneath his fingers. Years of tracking wolves had honed his senses, the shift in air currents, the subtle signs of movement, the quality of silence that indicated presence rather than emptiness. Someone's waiting at the exit, he concluded. They've anticipated our route. Joseph withdrew a small leather pouch from his shirt. Clara's contingency, he explained, removing what appeared to be a small USB drive, carefully wrapped in protective material. This must reach Dr. Chen, even if we do not. He pressed the device into Lily's hand. This contains everything, the complete research, formulas, patient outcomes, and evidence of Nexus Biologics plans. Clara prepared it as insurance, updated it regularly. It's her final gift to humanity. Lily tucked the drive securely into an inner pocket of her jacket. I'll protect it, like Mom would want. The old man turned to Everett. There is another way out, less direct but unguarded. It emerges in the sacred cave behind the waterfall. He pointed to a barely visible opening in the tunnel wall, obscured by rock formations. Take this path. I will create a diversion at the main exit. That's too dangerous, Everett protested. They're armed and prepared to kill. Joseph's weathered face settled into resolute lines. I have guarded these mountains for 60 years. I did not survive this long by confronting enemies directly. He withdrew several small objects from his pouch. What looked like seed pods. The mountain offers many defenses to those who understand its gifts. Before Everett could argue further, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from both directions, pursuers who had navigated through their traps and were now converging on their position. No time for debate, Joseph said firmly. The waterfall path. Go. With reluctance born of concern rather than mistrust, Everett guided Lily toward the hidden passage. As they slipped into its narrow confines, he looked back to see Joseph melting into the shadows with the fluid grace of someone who had spent a lifetime moving unseen through these tunnels. The new passage descended sharply before leveling out, the stone walls glistening with moisture. The sound of falling water grew louder with each step, confirming they were approaching the waterfall Joseph had mentioned. Lily paused suddenly, her hand going to her pocket where she'd stored Clara's USB drive. Wait, she whispered, removing the device and examining it more closely. In the glow of the beetles that accompanied them, Everett could see it wasn't a standard storage drive. Its casing appeared custom-made, with a small, secure compartment built into one end. Lily's nimble fingers found the hidden catch, revealing a miniature data card nestled within. "There's something inside," she said, carefully extracting the card. "It's different from the main drive." Everett examined the tiny card, recognizing it as a specialized format used for secure government communications. "Your mother left us more than research data," he realized. "This might be the key to everything." A thunderous explosion shook the tunnel, dust and small fragments of stone raining down around them. The confrontation had escalated beyond pursuit to destruction. "Joseph," Lily whispered, her young face tight with concern. "He knows these mountains better than anyone," Everett assured her, though worry gnawed at him. "We honor his choice by completing our mission." They continued toward the sound of rushing water, eventually emerging onto a narrow ledge behind a curtain of falling water. Through its transparent veil, they could see the forested valley below, painted in the golden hues of late afternoon. No signs of pursuers were visible from this vantage point. Joseph's diversion had apparently succeeded. Carefully navigating the slick stone path behind the waterfall, they descended to the bank of the stream below. Once on solid ground, Everett oriented himself using the mountain peaks visible through the trees. "The highway should be 4 miles east," he said, consulting the map Joseph had given them. "If we maintain a steady pace, we can reach it by nightfall." As they began their journey through the dense forest, Everett felt the weight of Clara's legacy in every step. The research data, the miraculous vial of medicine, and now this mysterious secure card, pieces of a puzzle she had constructed to protect her discovery, even after death. Whatever secrets the card contained, Clara had ensured they would reach the right hands. Her final gift wasn't just the medicine itself, but the path to sharing it with the world. Behind them, black smoke rose from the mountainside, evidence that their pursuers were willing to destroy the very prize they sought rather than let it escape their control. Twilight deepened around Everett and Lily as they navigated the dense forest. They had maintained a steady pace for hours, guided by the map and Everett's wilderness experience. The highway was close, less than a mile according to his estimation, when the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors shattered the evening calm. "Down," Everett whispered, pulling Lily beneath the spreading branches of a massive spruce. The aircraft appeared moments later, flying low over the canopy, a powerful searchlight sweeping the forest below. It wasn't a news or rescue helicopter, but a sleek black model with no visible markings, military grade, designed for covert operation. "They've expanded their search perimeter," Everett observed grimly as the helicopter made another pass overhead. They remained motionless until the sound faded, then continued with greater caution, using natural features for cover whenever possible. The weight of Clara's discoveries seemed to grow heavier with each step, not just physically, but in the magnitude of responsibility they carried. As the trees thinned near the forest edge, revealing the distant glimmer of highway lights, Everett halted abruptly ahead. Blocking their path to freedom, 4 black SUVs were parked at strategic intervals along the road access. Armed men established a perimeter, their movements betraying professional military training. "They've sealed the exit route," Everett whispered, guiding Lily back into deeper cover. "We need another way out." A twig snapped behind them. Everett whirled, bow raised, to find himself facing the barrel of a pistol held by a tall man with silver-gray hair and cold, calculating eyes. Despite his civilian clothes, an expensive outdoor jacket and hiking boots, he carried himself with unmistakable military bearing. "Dr. Blackwood," the man said calmly. "I'm Dr. Davis, Clara's former colleague. I believe you have something that belongs to us." 2 armed men materialized from the shadows, weapons trained on Everett and Lily. "Nothing here belongs to you," Everett replied, keeping his body between the men and his daughter. Davis's thin smile never reached his eyes. 7 years of classified research conducted on government resources using proprietary technology developed by Nexus Biologics. I assure you, both legally and ethically, Clara's work belongs to us. Weaponizing medicine isn't ethical, Lily said suddenly, her young voice steady despite the danger. Davis studied her with clinical interest. Ah, the successful test subject. You know your mother never reported the treatment she gave you. Technically, that makes you an unauthorized human trial. He stepped closer. We've been monitoring your biometrics remotely since entering the mountain region. Fascinating adaptations. You're a walking testament to the effectiveness of the compound. Everett's grip tightened on the bow. She's a child, not a lab specimen. She's the bridge between theoretical research and practical application, Davis corrected. The living proof that will convince the military to fund full-scale development. He gestured casually, and one of his men moved forward with practiced efficiency, relieving Everett of the bow and removing his backpack. The plants won't help you create weapons, Everett said, playing for time as he assessed their options. Clara altered her research before she died. Davis chuckled. A convenient fiction. We've already recovered significant portions of her notes from the tunnel system. What you're carrying is merely the final piece. His expression hardened. Now where is the master formula vial? Before Everett could respond, a sharp whistle pierced the air, followed by a thud, as one of Davis's men collapsed without a sound. A second whistle, another thud. The remaining guard spun in confusion, only to drop as a third projectile found its mark. Joseph emerged from the dense undergrowth like a shadow given form, a blowgun in his weathered hands. Davis raised his pistol, but Everett was already moving, tackling the man to the ground. The gun discharged harmlessly into the forest floor as they struggled. Despite his age, Davis possessed the wiry strength of a career military man. He landed a sharp blow to Everett's ribs before Everett managed to pin him, pressing the man's face into the loamy earth. Joseph, Everett called, maintaining his hold on the struggling Davis. Are you hurt? The old guardian approached, moving stiffly but without obvious injury. The mountain protects its own, he replied simply. Davis ceased struggling, his cold eyes calculating even in defeat. You have no idea what you're interfering with, he said. This research could revolutionize military medicine, save countless soldiers' lives, while creating new ways to take civilian lives, Everett countered. Clara saw your real plans. From his pocket, Joseph withdrew 2 objects. Simple wooden keys, intricately carved. He held them up for Everett to see. Clara prepared for this moment, he explained. 2 choices. This key, he held up the first, marked with a spiral symbol, will trigger collapse charges in the tunnel system, sealing the sanctuary and its secrets forever. He raised the second key, marked with a leaf pattern. This one will activate her distribution protocol, sending her complete research simultaneously to medical research centers worldwide, along with evidence of Nexus Biologics' weaponization program. Davis's expression betrayed genuine alarm. You can't release that research indiscriminately. The compounds are too powerful, too dangerous without proper controls. Controls you would provide? Joseph asked with quiet skepticism. Better us than chaos, Davis insisted. Think of the global instability if this technology falls into the wrong hands. Hands like yours, Everett countered. Lily had been silent throughout the confrontation, but now she stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the wooden keys in Joseph's hand. Mom wouldn't destroy her work, she said with certainty, but she wouldn't give it to just one group either. She turned to her father, wisdom beyond her years in her solemn expression. There's another way. From her pocket, Lily withdrew the secure data card they had discovered inside Clara's USB drive. Mom left instructions, not to destroy, not to distribute blindly, but something else. Davis's eyes locked onto the card with naked desire. The master protocol, he breathed. Clara's complete formula sequencing, and her final message, Joseph added, a hint of satisfaction in his weathered features. Recorded for those who would follow. The weight of decision pressed upon Everett as he held Davis immobilized. 2 keys, 2 paths, destruction or worldwide release, both extreme options in their own way. But Lily suggested a third path, one Clara had hidden within her contingency plans. The real choice, it seemed, had yet to be revealed. 6 months later, Everett stood at the window of a high-rise building in downtown Seattle, watching rain trace patterns on the glass. Behind him, a television played quietly, the news anchor's voice measured and professional. In international health news, the 5th Treatment Center, utilizing what's being called the Mountain Protocol, opened today in Nairobi, expanding access to the revolutionary plant-based therapies that have shown unprecedented success rates against previously incurable conditions. He turned as the office door opened, admitting Dr. Eleanor Chen, a distinguished woman in her 60s whose keen intelligence radiated from her every movement. The WHO Oversight Committee has approved the next phase, she announced, setting a file on her desk. Decentralized production facilities on 3 continents, using cultivated specimens rather than harvesting from the original source. Everett nodded, satisfaction warming him despite the grey day outside. Clara would have approved protection through distribution rather than isolation. Your wife was brilliant, Dr. Chen said, genuine admiration in her voice. Her third option was ingenious, establishing an international oversight consortium with no single entity controlling the research, while implementing safeguards against weaponization. On the desk sat a framed photograph taken at the mountain cabin. Lily stood beside Joseph and Dr. Chen, all 3 planting seedlings in a newly constructed greenhouse. The structure, now one of 12 worldwide cultivated, the miraculous plants under strict protocols developed from Clara's research. How is Lily adjusting to her new role? Dr. Chen asked. Better than I expected, Everett replied. The other guardians respect her connection to the plants. Joseph says she's the strongest he's seen in generations. The Guardians, a diverse group of botanists, indigenous knowledge keepers and medical researchers, had formed the core of the consortium Clara had designed in her final instructions. No governments, no corporations, only individuals committed to ethical stewardship of the discovery. Dr. Davis and Nexus Biologics had faced a different fate. The evidence on Clara's secure card, including recorded conversations and internal memos detailing plans for weaponization, had triggered international investigations and criminal charges. The latest patient outcomes are exceeding projections, Dr. Chen continued, pulling up data on her tablet. 93% efficacy in terminal cancer cases, full remission in 87% of autoimmune conditions. She shook her head in wonder. And not a single instance of the integration side effects Clara experienced. She perfected the formula before she died, Everett said quietly, her final gift. On screen, the news shifted to footage of a mountain seen from above, the forest canopy vibrant with spring growth. The anchor's voice continued, environmentalists are celebrating the designation of the Clara Blackwood Wilderness Preserve, protecting over 50,000 acres of pristine ecosystem where the revolutionary medicinal plants were first discovered. The helicopter view showed no trace of the tunnel entrances or the cabin, all carefully concealed as part of the protection plan. Only a handful of guardians knew the locations, ensuring the original sanctuary remained safe from exploitation. Everett's satellite phone vibrated in his pocket, the secure line used only by Joseph and Lily during his trips to the consortium headquarters. Dad, Lily's excited voice filled the line. The first seedlings we sent to the Amazon facility are showing adaptive properties. Ramirez says they're integrating with the local ecosystem exactly like Mom predicted. Her enthusiasm brought a smile to his face. At 9 years old, Lily had grown into her role with remarkable grace, dividing her time between normal childhood activities and her unique responsibilities as a guardian. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Did you document the growth patterns like we discussed? Of course, and the beetles. They're adapting too. The Brazilian species are starting to show bioluminescent traits after exposure to our plants. Her voice lowered conspiratorially. I think they're communicating with our mountain beetles somehow. After saying goodbye, Everett pocketed the phone and turned back to the rain-streaked window. In the glass reflection, he could almost see Clara standing beside him, her determined expression softened by a proud smile. The mountain had kept its secrets for centuries, revealing them only to those who approached with respect rather than greed. Clara had understood this fundamental truth, embedding it in her final protocol. The plants would heal humanity only if humanity proved worthy of their gift. Down on the street, a small girl wearing a bright yellow raincoat jumped joyfully in a puddle, her mother watching with patient affection. The simple scene crystallized everything they had fought to protect, the future, embodied in children who would grow up in a world where healing came from understanding nature's wisdom rather than conquering it. That evening, as his plane approached the mountain airport, Everett watched the familiar peaks emerge from cloud shadow, their eternal presence a reminder of nature's patient perspective. Humans were temporary stewards, not owners of the mountain's gifts. In the valley below, lights twinkled from the research center that now operated openly on the mountain's lower slopes, its work continuing Clara's legacy. The original sanctuary remained hidden deep within the stone heart of the mountain, a backup, an insurance policy, a sacred trust. As the plane banked for its final approach, Everett spotted a small figure waiting on the observation deck, Lily, likely bouncing with excitement to share her latest discoveries. Beside her stood Joseph's stooped form, a guardian passing the torch to the next generation. The circle continued, just as Clara had planned. Not an ending, but a new beginning.